Can we hang out? Can we go for lunch? Can we do this? Can we do that?
Hey, I told you. I don't want to fucking hang around with you anymore because you crazy. So I got asked a question a while ago that was a really good question, and then I forgot to answer it, and it's just come up recently with a client, which is about how to split up with a narcissistic boyfriend. And the same rules apply for splitting up with a narcissistic girlfriend. I had to do all of these things with my ex. The splitting up process is a dangerous one. Things to watch out for are the desire to run away, the desire to flee from pain and to sort of leave the scene of the crime and to move house or move, as I did, I moved continent. I used to hate taking long flights, and I ended up for the first time taking a flight that lasted longer than 6 hours, and just to get away from the area that I was in because it was too painful for me to be there. These are the kinds of things you don't want to do because they're expensive and they screw your life up. The psychological research on heartache suggests that in the first 18 months after your heart has been broken, you make really bad decisions. Well, that sounds like common sense, doesn't it? But I'd never read that before. I'd never seen it before. And when I actually read it, I was like, oh, it was like a light bulb went on in my head. I was like, after my breakup, why did I do so many stupid things in a row and put myself on this like downward spiral kind of thing? You must have as much stability, consistency. You've got to keep making money. You've got to keep going to the gym. You've got to keep eating right. Yes, I know you want to drink alcohol and snort cocaine and sleep with random strange men or random strange women, but don't do that. You need normality. You need as much stability as you can get together. I am going to talk about drugs on a video on this channel, but I'm not going to talk about it on this one. It's not a case of me going, you know, I reserve the right to do drugs as a sovereign adult individual for the rest of my life, and so should you. But at this time, when you feel emotional, it's not a good time to be doing drugs, and certain drugs are worse for certain people than others. Cocaine, alcohol, all of that comes with its own problems, but bear in mind any drug that you take has a come down, and that can affect you as well, so you want to avoid drugs, obviously, during that period. It sounds facetious, but a lot of people will use drugs as a coping mechanism for painful emotions. The other thing that you want to do is you want to create boundaries, reassert your personal boundaries. The first person you have to assert a boundary with always is yourself. In order to assert boundaries with other people, you've got to be asserting boundaries with yourself. You've got to say, look, I'm no longer going to let these people do this. I'm not going to let them talk to me that way. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm not going to let that. So you assert it with yourself. It's like the expression, the only real discipline is self-discipline. Having asserted the boundary at an internal level, you can then exert it at an external level. And the next thing you want to do is move to no contact. You must diminish contact with the narcissistic partner that you're breaking up with as much as you practically can. Now, in relation to dealing with narcissistic ex-partners, there's actually somebody I had an experience of this with recently, and I've developed a strategy for dealing with this girl, which is, I found, you can use this as a tip, it might be relevant to you, it might not be. If you push them away too hard and too fast, you can create a game of push-pull. So you know the expression, what you resist persists, what you look at disappears. That's a useful expression. You find that in like New Age psychology, what you resist persists, what you look at disappears. In the martial arts, if I want you to push against me, I push you first. Like if I want to pull you, I push you first. And then your body instinctively resists. And as that body instinctively resists, I can then pull you and break your balance, okay? So don't push them away too hard, because the natural human instinct of if you push somebody, is they're going to push back. So if you pull away from them too quickly, they'll chase you, okay? So don't do that. What I do with my narcissistic ex here.
Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. I really miss you. Can we hang out? Can we go for lunch? Can we do this? Can we do that?
Is I don't say,
I told you, I don't want to fucking hang around with you anymore because you're crazy.
what I'll do is I'll say,
Oh, hey!
same tone, same emotional vibe I'm getting from her, I'll say back to her,
Oh, hey! Yeah, it has been a while. Okay, we'll meet up.
and then just never meet up. Always just polite, like this is how I do it. I just politely float it along in a way where we never seem to quite meet up. But what happens with a narcissist is she's feeding off that. She's feeding off me saying, hey, yeah, I would meet up with you. So then she gets the dopamine release and she feels good. She goes, oh, he'll still hang out with me. I won't bother to go and see him. Do you see what I'm saying? That won't work for everybody. Every situation is different. It's all context specific. But in this scenario, I found that to work quite well. You've got to be cunning. You've got to be clever. A lot of people who tend to be the victims of emotional abuse and bullying and narcissism tend to have certain personality traits, which I laid out in my self-assertiveness course, which you can buy from the link below. There's 15 personality traits that various researchers have identified and I've put together that tend to lead people towards being the victims of emotional abuse. One of them is being conscientious. People, and I've found this in therapy with people. I never set out to be a coach for people who specifically had issues in narcissistic relationships. When I started this was not what the project was going to be about at all. It was going to be much more political. And when I did psychology, it was going to be to do with heartache generally. But anyway, we focused on narcissism. And one of the things that I found that is important to teach people who have been the victims of narcissists is stop being so sincere. Stop being so honest. You know, your value and your empathy and your sincerity and your honesty and earnestness is lunch to these fucking cockroaches. So you got to stop with that when you're dealing with them. You know, as I put it to a client the other day, you know, if you're dealing with gangsters, you've got to think like a gangster, because if you don't, you're like a drunk lamb at a, you know, partying with a bunch of wolves, aren't you? I mean, you're really super vulnerable, and somebody is eventually going to reach out and eat you up and drink your milkshake. And you don't want that to happen. Your milkshake's your milkshake. So yeah, you've got to be cunning. You've got to be careful. So that's one potential strategy for you. As you're pushing somebody away, you should try and do it in a way that isn't going to inflame them, that's not going to set their ego off, that's not going to set their defenses off, that's not going to inflame the pain body, but actually feeds them. Oh yeah. Oh, you want to see me? Oh, I miss you too. No, I don't. There's a reason why we split up. I don't even know why you insist on hanging out with me. But, you know, I say, oh yeah, I miss you too. We should hang out. And because one of her personality traits is she's quite flighty, and obviously most narcissists are, and once she's had her little feed, she doesn't need anything more. I can actually keep her at bay, and I have done for months on end now. I literally haven't seen this girl for 5 or 6 months. Now, if I'd said to her 5 or 6 months ago, I'm not seeing you for 5 or 6 months, she would have stalked me. In this case, she knows where I train, where I hang out. You know, she's literally phoned me when I've been hanging out with other friends in a cafe and been like, where are you? Just to see if I'd lie. And I'm like, where are you? Because it feels like somebody's watching me right now. So my way of actually floating her along was to do it in a nice way, but I was lying. It was totally insincere. I had no intention of meeting up with her. But in order to get to my end goal of not meeting up with her, I had to be slightly Machiavellian. So don't be afraid to use a Machiavellian approach. Te absolvo. I give you permission. You may do this. You will not be judged for it. It's okay to do that when you're dealing with abusive personality types. Do everything you can to maintain your sanity. And here's a question to ask yourself. It's a litmus test all the time, and I do this all the time right now as part of like an ongoing sort of thought experiment, self-discipline I'm using. Is this creating more sanity or less? Would that situation create more sanity and stability or less? Am I doing something that is sane right now or less? Sanity, sanity, sanity. Move towards peace, move towards wholesomeness, health and sanity, and you'll start making better decisions. It's a great way to just put yourself back on track as a ship that's flowing through life, away from the icebergs and towards the nice sunny bright places that you're moving to now. That's me hypnotizing you. I just gave you a post-hypnotic command to feel really good all day and for the rest of the week.